Welcome one, welcome all. Week 15 is here. There is only 4 more Millie Roundtable shows for 2023. Well, I guess there's technically 3 because the last one's going to come in 2024. But we get a lot of fun on a 10-game slate. And if you've been watching football all day, I applaud you. The first game between the Bengals and Vikings was great. The Colts and Steelers wasn't great if you had Zach Moss and Michael Pittman. And just everything about that game was a mess. But at least we got Sam Laporta and the whole true thing that tight ends always kill the Broncos. And that is certain to hit with Laporta finding the end zone. But I am joined by Snyder. I am joined by Drew. Snyder, how's your day been, man?
Yeah, it's been an interesting day here. We had some injuries. Jamar Chase got hurt, separated his shoulder. A couple injuries in that Colts game, too. So it's kind of brutal on the injury front there. But had some college games going too. The bowl games just started today as well. So it's been a fun day. We got UFC going on right now too. So action everywhere.
Yeah, UFC, a big card tonight, UFC 296. And I know that, Drew, you are a big UFC guy. Who's the bet tonight? Who's the main bet that I got to hit while we're on the show?
I don't know. I tuned out. I lost, I think, 3 of the first 4 fights. So I think one lineup is not drawing dead yet. So yeah, I don't have any bets, but it was actually a decent card. It was actually a fun card to build on, but yeah, let's see. Yeah, I got a couple that are live, actually more than one, but yeah, not doing great. So I've tuned out and just been chilling at home listening to music, man.
I like it. I got to bet Patty the Batty if he's on the slate. I mean, my goodness, Patty the Batty. We got to make sure that we're done with this show by then, but it looks like it's not going to tip until way late, so we're good there. The fights are in Vegas, but we had a whole bunch of content for UFC 296. I know this is the last UFC event until January 13th, I think, so we'll have everything and then some getting started in 2024. And again, guys, Giblets 44% off your first week or month with Frontier Sports. Get access to not just NFL, not just NBA, not just MMA. Every single sport that we have to offer. We covered every slate today, and we'll continue on into tomorrow. And we got 10 games to talk about. The first game is Atlanta and Carolina. And I do want to mention, too, what Snyder told me before the show started, and it's going to be 100% true, is that the late games are the ones that you want to target. So if you get bored in the early games, like, man, they hate a lot of guys, just be patient. You know, we're going to get into the Cowboys Bills at the end of the show. We're going to get into the Rams 28.5 team total later in the show. But we got to start with some barn burners. And the first one is a barn burner. It's the Falcons at the Carolina Panthers. But we have nobody projecting for over 10% ownership. The Falcons come near it. The Falcons defense, that is, which surprises me because we get Bijan Robinson under 7K on paper without much slate context. I mean, Bijan at under 7K against one of the worst rushing defenses in the league, Snyder, could be one of the things that I could be interested in. What about you?
Yeah, this is an interesting game here. Like you said with the slate here, I'm going to be mainly just looking to target some mid-range and some values here on the early slate and kind of backloading most of my teams. But we've got a few guys here in this game. There's actually a lot of money coming in on the under in this. Like 80% of the money is coming in on the under, and I can believe why. But we got Jonathan Mingo still under 4K. He's a guy I'll be looking at this week. Last week I played him. I've been playing him the last 2 or 3 weeks. Last week he saw 9 targets, caught 2 of them. So that was not the best from him. But he's seen 10 targets and 9 targets his last 2 games. So I'll be going right back to the Mingo well for some value there at 3.9. I think he makes for a solid play. Drake London was kind of the cash guy that it was either some people played him in cash, some people didn't. And he was kind of heavily owned in Terminus, too. He freaking went off, though, for 10 for 172 last week. Caught 10 of his 11 targets. So he's still underpriced at 5.4, so you can go there if you want. The Falcons are away from home, though. So I generally like to target like the Falcons and the Saints when they're at home playing in the Dome versus away from the Dome. So maybe I get away from Drake London this week. Bijan Robinson still under 7K. It's a good price tag for him if you want to go there. He had a solid game last week, nothing crazy. 34 yards rushing on his 10 carries. Found the end zone, though, and then he caught 5 passes in the passing game, which kind of salvaged his day there, 5 for 54. But not too much here from me. I think it's just going to be a couple of one-offs in this game for me, like a lot of these early games. But if you want to go to one of the tight ends too, that's fine. Like Kyle Pitts at 4K, that's fine. He actually found the end zone last week, I believe. Yeah, he had 3 for 57 on 6 targets. He's had 8 targets and 6 targets the last 2 weeks. So maybe I can get on some Pitts too. Maybe do like a little corollary secondary stack with like a Pitts and a Mingo for real cheap. Both guys are 4K and 3.9.
Yeah, and I want to mention on Mingo, end of the first half, he was wide open on a deep ball into the end zone, and Bryce Young missed it. It was one of those things where if you played Mingo like I did, you sat the whole day tilting that throw because it was a touchdown for Mingo. He was way behind the defense. All Bryce Young had to do was throw it. It was about a 30-yard, 40-yard touchdown. It wasn't a long throw. And that was really frustrating, but it just shows that Mingo's upside is unrealized, right? The air yards are there. And it was a wide open throw. Maybe if we finally get some Bryce Young, some good throwing action, maybe Mingo can actually hit value. Drew, the reason why Snyder mentioned that 80% of the money is on the under is because the weather is going to be absolutely terrible. It's looking like rain and wind all game. And it's not just that 10-mile-per-hour wind or something like that. You can see it in the 20-mile-per-hour range. What's that do to you on this game?
Yeah, it's going to be a stay off. I think Snyder did a good job filling some airtime on this game. I probably am going to play some Hubbard. Been playing more and more of him as the season progressed, which is odd. I guess he's just been getting bumped down in ownership versus the other running backs. But I think Bijan's in a good spot. Obviously, he's just expensive. So relatively speaking, Hubbard's $1,200 cheaper. Outside of that, man, it's just such a low scoring game. I can't imagine there's many people that are really going to be cruising, I think, in this game environment. So I think the running backs have a good spot. Hubbard, I do like Hubbard. Been playing, like I said, I've been playing a good bit of him, so I'll probably go back to it in this script. But that's probably it. It's going to be a light exposure for the first game of the slate for me.
Yeah, both defenses, the Panthers defense especially clocks in at 2,800, which could see some interest, right? You mentioned it, Snyder, that you like playing the Falcons when they're at home. Ritter's home road splits are pretty drastic, right? He plays much better at home than he is on the road. Obviously, you can just get 2 quarters and make it into that Panthers game. Apparently, a ticket costs 45 cents nowadays in the Carolina. But it does seem like some bad weather could definitely bring the defenses into play. I still like Bijan, but I'm with you guys. Other than that, maybe I can talk myself on the Mingo for a 3rd straight week. But, yeah, it seems like a stay-away game. Bad weather all around, and Bijan would be my only skill player of interest. I respect the Chuba one. Miles Sanders had a big run, but that's it. It's been Chuba's backfield that last month and a half. It's definitely been Chuba's backfield. Let's move on to the Jets and Dolphins. So the Dolphins clock in near 10-point favorites. There's huge news that we got to get here too, because Tyreek Hill, if you guys aren't aware, tweaked his ankle in the first quarter of last game against the Titans. Came back. Wasn't really all that effective. I mean, he kind of sat out some plays, had a couple big catches even post-injury and stuff, but it seems like the Dolphins are putting the ball in his court on if he wants to play, which shows me that it's just pain tolerance. What are you doing with Tyreek Hill this week? Obviously, it's a super tough matchup, and the Dolphins, despite, kind of putting up a big score on the Jets last time they faced off on, what was it, Thanksgiving almost, right? Or it might have been Black Friday game.
Oh, yeah.
They're not really have a huge team total or anything. I think a lot of people are looking at how the way Tua looked without Tyreek last week and maybe thinking twice about this Dolphins offense right now.
Yeah, we've got an interesting weather here too as well. Is I usually don't bring the wind in the focus if it's in that 15 to 20 mile an hour range, but when it's sustained at 20 with gusts up to 30, I start to take note of that, and we're seeing very little to no ownership on this game, and rightfully so. I mean, the Jets have a good defense. I think we will see some ownership come in on Garrett Wilson, but on the Dolphins side, I don't think much ownership is going to be warranted over there. Wilson's off of a solid game, still under 6K, 5.8's good price tag for him. I think Zach Wilson's going to continue to push the ball his way in the shorter intermediate passes, so the wind shouldn't affect that too much. I think Tyreek Hill is a pure game time decision from the way I took it. He's going to let the team know, I guess, in the morning whether he can go or not. He hasn't really been practicing or anything, but he's kind of earned that with the team with him being a vet in the league. So we'll see if he goes tomorrow morning. If he doesn't, I think that brings in Jalen Waddle at basically no ownership. 7.4 is still pretty high, but I think the Dolphins are still going to put up points here. I know the total in the game's low, but they're favored by 9 points. They should be able to put up 3 touchdowns or so. If Waddle can go for like 7 for 90 and a touchdown, that'd be pretty solid for him at 7-4. Etienne is 7-2. I think he's always a good tournament play. And if Hill's out, I think they could use him kind of in the passing game as well a little more, get him in space, let him do his thing. So last week he had a run of 15 yards, didn't have that huge run that he had earlier in the year where he had 76, 55, and 67-yard runs, but definitely has the biggest upside of almost anyone on the running back slate there. So you can go there. I don't see myself really getting too much in this game, though. It's going to be kind of common with these early games, but I'm not going to play Tua. I'm not going to play Zach Wilson. It's just some one-offs. Maybe I get a chain in there some. Maybe I get some Garrett Wilson. I know Garrett Wilson's like a cash fringe play, so he'll definitely see some ownership there.
Yeah, I mean, Dolphins defense is the only one that projects for more than 13% in the Millie Maker, right? But Garrett Wilson is second in this game. And after the last week's game where Zach Wilson was just confidently zipping the ball to Garrett Wilson, it's good to see. And I keep saying it every single week. Last week was the one to play him, but how much longer are we going to see Garrett Wilson at 5,800 or under 6K? The weather's not great here, Drew. A-Chain has a little bit of a turf toe issue. Tyreek's questionable. What are you doing with this Miami just offense in general? What are you doing with Garrett Wilson?
I think Garrett Wilson's in play. Again, this is another game I'm not super. The Miami side would be the only one that I would be interested in, and I'm not really, I'm not going to buy into Tyreek Hill, even at the price feels healthy, to be honest, on this slate. Jalen Waddle's a little bit expensive, but if Hill sits, I think Waddle's in a pretty good spot. Even considering the weather, I think 7,400 if he's going to be the workhorse makes a lot of sense. But we joked earlier in the season, like 5-man Miami stacks were winning Millie Makers early on, but like we haven't really seen like full-on stacks do well, and I don't think this would be a game where a 3-man stack would do well anyway. So I'm pretty low on this game in general. I think the Dolphins defense is probably the contrarian defense at 4K. The Jets seem like they'd probably be relatively popular, being the cheapest on the slate. I think they're the cheapest on the slate. But yeah, I'm not really excited about this game. This is another one. I mean, Hill at a cheaper price would be a huge decision. I don't even think at the price it's a decision. It's just a Jalen Waddle decision from there. So I'm really not interested in Mostert or A-Chain. So yeah, I'm pretty low on this game, as you can tell.
So let's just play a game real quick. Tyreek Hill's out in the morning. What does that do to you with Jalen Waddle?
So I think Jalen Waddle goes into play, and I would probably be a little bit more interested in going down to Berrios. You could take in Smith or Smythe, whatever you want to pronounce Durham's last name. But I think like taking one other cheap option wouldn't be awful, because now you're spreading it out. Instead of Tyreek Hill getting 10 targets, it's going to obviously have 5 or 6 to Waddle, and then you're going to be moving it to, or I shouldn't say 10 to Hill. Hill's getting like 13 or 14. But then now you're going to get something, Berrios or Durham, I think would be the other option. So I think it would just open up a little bit of value on those cheap end guys, because the total is still relatively good, 23. And I don't think it would go down a ton with Hill out in this against the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, this is also one of the things too where A-Chain's questionable, right? He's probably going to play, but the Jets are really weak against the run. I mean, if A-Chain or Mostert, I mean, one of these two guys have really done well all season. At least one of them has when they're both, and sometimes both. I don't think it's out of the question for a tournament play to get them at like what they're projected like sub 1% right now. No one wants a piece of this game. I think that's going to be inflated. Obviously, I think it would be sub 5% is where you're aiming at. I think that they're viable because the Jets are a run funnel. You don't really want to throw in these guys. And the last time that the Jets played the Dolphins, it was Mostert who did really well when A-Chain was out. It's harder to predict when A-Chain's in, but if you're willing to take a risk in a large field tournament, I can see the running game. Garrett Wilson, yeah, I'm fine with. But yeah, I think you guys broke it down. Breece Hall, we had a question here. Breece at low ownership. My thing with Breece is I'd rather have the other side of the ball. I think I'd rather have the Dolphins running backs. Breece did do well in the passing game, and they are checking it down to him a lot. So the floor is there. I don't want to say like the floor is not there, he's bad play, because we all know the upside. The Dolphins defense, conceded 28 or something like that to Will Levis last week. And there were some turnovers, right? But like I can see Brees a little bit. I just on the 2 games that we talked about, though, I would put Bijan just above him.
Yeah.
But I don't hate Brees at all. I think that's a fine call there. Let's move on to the team that beat the Dolphins last week. That is Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans. They are favored going against the Houston Texans. And if there's one thing I keep reading on Twitter is that Derrick Henry, not only is it December, but he owns the Houston Texans franchise. That's what I've heard. And we kind of low ownership on this game. Only 2 guys stand out. DeAndre Hopkins at 13.61% projected ownership. And then this one doesn't make sense to me. I guess it does at under 3K, but Chig Okonkwo at 21.67%. That must mean that tight end's pretty bad, Snyder. And I got to touch on the fact that the Texans might be probably without CJ Stroud, probably without Nico Collins, maybe without Noah Brown. This is a weakened Texans team. So what does that do for you in this one?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when I seen how high Chig was going to be. I figured he's going to be a little popular, but I didn't really expect to see him close to 30% potentially in some contests. But if you would guarantee me like 9 points like he's been getting here recently in the last few games, if you would guarantee me 9 points for Chig at 2.9K, I might even just lock him in. But he's definitely been producing, getting good targets, 2.9K. Good matchup for him. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to see some ownership as well here. I don't mind playing some Will Levis at 5.4 and pairing him up with Hopkins. Hopkins should be able to nuke this defense. This defense sets up well for how Hopkins has played well or had the big games this year. So right there. And on the Houston side, it sounds like Case Keenum's going to be the starter now. And it's not too often we get a decent, I don't know, decent wise maybe. I mean, he's 4K. I mean, if he puts up like 15 points for 4K, I mean, it allows you to spend up for studs in the rest of your build. So I may be tempted to play some Case Keenum tomorrow at 4K flat. You can stack him with Noah Brown, get a full stack there. You can go, you could even do like a double Keenum, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz, and that's going to be relatively cheap. That's going to be like just under 14K for that double stack. We've seen Schultz kind of go off a little bit. He's going to be unowned this week, maybe like 1% owned. I don't know if I would actually double him, I guess. Maybe I would just go Keenum and Noah Brown for the 9K stack there. Against the pass funnel, too. Usually we like to target the Tennessee defense passing-wise, so you get a 4K quarterback who we know he's got a little bit of talent. So I think I just talked myself into playing some Case Keenum tomorrow. Run it back with Hopkins or Chig. Definitely I'm going to have Derrick Henry in my player pool with him under 7K. The upside that he's shown throughout his career, especially against this Houston team at home. Good game script. They're favored. Everything's lining up for Henry to have a big game here. He just has to kind of fade Tajay Spears, as Henry's only seen about half the snaps over the last 3 weeks. So that is a little bit that draws back to him. But three straight games where he's gotten in the end zone twice. So King Henry could have another like 150-2 game here, I think, easily.
Yeah, I mean, Henry has done really well. The one concern, right, if I'm just going to paint a picture, is that the comeback came with Tajay Spears on the field. Tajay Spears gave him a different dynamic. He was utilizing the pass game, right? Does that lead to a loss of snaps for Henry? I don't think so. I mean, that's just the picture I'm painting. You know, they go up early. They try and slow the game down. But, yeah, I think you bring up a great point with Case Keenum, though. 4K. Drew, I'm going to paint you a picture, all right? Xavier Hutchinson is 3K. He was a stud in college. Very good in college. Case Keenum, Xavier Hutchinson, Noah Brown. All right? You're spending 12K for a double stack, and you get a pace-up offense and a pass funnel. Are you saying no?
No, I'd probably say yes. I could be sold on that for sure. I don't know. There's some bias there, I guess. But yeah, I do. I mean, the game overall looks good. I think I have more interest in the Tennessee side, and not just Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry, obviously in a good spot, going for 4 straight games with two tutties, which is pretty nice. So we know that probably be getting pushed quite a bit to the sports books, and that won't hit because it's all rigged, as we're told. So But yeah, I can definitely buy into some Case Keenum with a 3-man stack that's super cheap and then opens up because there are some good environments and some good weather. This weather actually is pretty good, so I'm surprised I don't like the Houston side more. I think it's just the with Tank Dell being out, I don't know where to go. But yeah, I think Houston definitely has some good options. DeAndre Hopkins, Chig, kind of the higher owned guys on Tennessee, I do like, and they're still relatively cheap. And like I said, I think it's a pretty good game environment. 22? I lost it. I think 20. Is it 20 for their team total? And then Houston at 17 or so. But yeah, this would be one of those where you could get the full stack really cheap and then have some studs in there as fillers. But yeah, overall, this is a pretty good game. I would just rate it, probably Tennessee, DeAndre Hopkins, Chig as like the top value, those two. And then, like you said, Xavier Hutchinson at 3K is a phenomenal value.
And I just want to point out too, and just because this is a 37 over under, right? Total of 37 does not mean that these guys aren't priced where they should be, right? People are always saying in the NBA stuff, well, you're fading a 260 point total between the Pacers and Wizards. I'm like, yeah, I mean, they've been scoring 260 all season. You think DraftKings wouldn't adjust their pricing right now, right? The reason why you'd be on the Texans, you're not hoping that, Case Keenum turns into Jake Browning, the greatest backup of all time, and just starts throwing 300 yards a game. But you can get really cheap stacks that open up really high floor skill position players. And there's a chance. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, man, he's going to do it. But if you offered 20 for Case Keenum, right, just blindly knowing that Case Keenum's going to get 20, these wide receivers are going to crush at those tags. You just have to think that. And John Mechie's a good call. Someone put that. Richie Smalls put it in here. Maybe some Mechie. Yeah. I need to dive deeper into the snap counts a little bit. I like Hutchinson in college. He was always a target machine. Noah Brown's been a stud when he's been in. You could still have the Houston Texans really just come out with their fast-paced offense and make some noise. And you had a week for this, right? They had a week knowing that Stroud probably wasn't going to play, right? This is the first test. Not the first test, because they have been damn good this season. I don't want to take anything away from the Houston Texans at all. The coaching has been great. But you get a first test with a backup quarterback. I want to see what they do. I want to see if they just take the kid gloves off, how they game plan around him and stuff. And I'm willing to take that risk at 4K. All right, I don't know if I'm going to do that on my main team or whatever like that, but he'll definitely be in the pool tomorrow. And I think that's a great call. And I think it's very much worth the discussion too. Those double stacks with Houston, run it back with a guy like Henry. And if you think that, Case Keenum sucks, Titans defense is there for you at 37. All right, let's move on to Giants, Saints. So obviously the Saints are at home, so we like him now. 6-point favorites almost here. So Wan'Dale Robinson looked really good last week. Tommy DeVito is, the Italian, just perfection, right? You get a Monday Night Football game where Tommy DeVito and his agent are just, they are the shit. I don't know how to Tommy DeVito's a stud, man. Saquon Barkley is projected around 8%. The funny thing is, it's not really funny or whatever. One thing to note is that none of these Saints, despite a 23-point team total, are projecting for more than 6% ownership. We get Taysom Hill in the mix. So Taysom Hill does not have an injury designation, I don't think. So 5,500, he is back. People had a really sour taste in their mouth with Alvin Kamara. He split a lot of work with Jamal Williams last week. You get Rashid Shaheed back in the mix. You get A.T. Perry there. Chris Olave is up in the air, but I think he's going to. Should I be higher on the Saints? And are they too low owned, Snyder? And what are you doing with the Giants as well?
Yeah, I was pretty tilted with the Saints last week. We get Alvin Kamara in there without any Taysom Hill, and he only plays 28 snaps. This is lowest snap count in the whole year. I mean, I don't know what was going on there. That was definitely tilting. I had him on some good teams, too, that just got drugged down from him. But I probably won't go back there at 8-6. I'd rather play some of the studs in the later games. So there's going to be no Kamara for me this week. I really don't see myself getting to any of these Saints, really. I mean, you could always have Olave in the player pool at 7-1. He's got the upside to win tournaments if he goes off. Shaheed 3 or at 4-3. I mean, you can go there if you want. I really don't see myself getting to many of these Saints, so I really do like Wan'Dale though for a value piece. 3-7. He's gonna bring some ownership with him, but he's one of those values from this early slate that I'm looking to get overweight on. He's probably only gonna be around 15%, I think, but the targets have been there the last few games. He finally had a pretty good game last week. Caught 6 of 7 targets for 79 yards. Hasn't found the end zone yet, though. I think he found the end zone once this year, but maybe he finds the end zone this week finally. At 3-7, if he gets, 6 catches for 60 yards again and a touchdown, man, I would definitely be very, very ecstatic with that stat line. 3,700 is going to be a guy that I'm overweight on just to fit in some more studs in the later games that I want to get to. I don't see myself getting to Bellinger or any of those either. I'd rather play Chig for 300 more than Bellinger. He's 2.6. I'd rather just go to Chig there, though. I think it's pretty much just Wandale for me here in this game.
Yeah, I think Wandale really made a positive impression. It wasn't just, that simple screen pass or whatever. He was actually getting down the field. There was a couple incompletions too where DeVito just missed them on. He could have had a major score. I mean, he still put up a good score last game. But, yeah, I think Wandale really impressed me. I think, Drew, when I talk about the Saints, too, I think, it's impossible to stack, right? Because if you play Derek Carr, Taysom Hill's right there. And Taysom Hill's going to vulture all the touchdowns. When you play Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams is going to get all the carries, even without Taysom Hill in the mix. It's a frustrating team, right? What are your thoughts on this? Because, we never see a team with a 23-point team total. It was, honestly pretty cheap outside of Alvin Kamara here. I mean, really, really low owned, all under 5%.
Yeah, I've been playing Olave every week the last couple of weeks, so I'll probably have some of him as a one-off. I wouldn't be stacking him with Carr. I think this game, honestly, I don't see myself stacking this game up. I think there's pieces that kind of blow up stacks, like Alvin Kamara for the Saints will blow up those stacks. Taysom Hill, you just talked about, will blow up some stacks. And I think the same thing can happen on the Giants side with Saquon Barkley against DeVito and whoever he's thrown it to. So I do like the cheaper options on the Giants. Wan'Dale Robinson is still really cheap, I think, for his upside. He's just going to be quite a bit owned. And there's some other options, like wide receiver options, that are a little bit cheaper and way less owned. And I think there's a pretty good chance that he goes to them. Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt are those two there. But yeah, I think I'm going to be one-offing this game. And no DeVito stacks, no Derek Carr stacks. I do like Barkley quite a bit. I think he's going to be pretty low owned. Sabre has him under 9% right now. And he's gone off for 30 and 24, 2 of his last 3 games. So I like Barkley. If the script goes a certain way where DeVito does not get it going, Barkley's just going to run train on New Orleans, I think. So I do like Barkley here. And then it's just cheaper one-off options.
Yeah, I like it. And it's also big news. Yeah, we did get Sean G in the chat letting us know here because I forgot I read about it today. Darren Waller is back in the mix. I don't think it's a huge thing to Wan'Dale Robinson. I do think it just helps that offense in general. When we saw Isaiah Hodgins and Jalen Hyatt get a lot of targets last week, and no offense, I like Jalen Hyatt. I think he's a good young talent. But Waller can consume some of those targets. Wan'Dale and Waller are so different that I think they kind of benefit each other. So not really worried about Wan'Dale getting hurt, but I am worried about these secondary pieces for the New York Giants, right? Tommy DeVito, obviously 5K. I'm not going to do it on the road in the Superdome. But yeah, I think you're right. It's tough to stack up any of these options. Olave, Shaheed. I always love Shaheed's big playability. It's tough. 4,300 for a guy with, no real great floor, even without Mike Thomas. It's tough. I think it's still worth mixing in Taysom Hill. I just think that there's 20-point upside for 5.5K that's never owned. Why not, right? They need offensive production. Derek Carr sucks, man. I just no way around it too. I could see myself playing some Taysom Hill tomorrow, but we'll move on to a mid-30s game, actually a high 30s game. This is a Chicago Bears team taking on the Cleveland Browns. So the Cleveland Browns here, not the greatest weather in Cleveland. I should mention that off the top. We had the Bears kind of get steamed up really late last week going against the Lions. You had DJ Moore coming at very high ownership. You had Justin Fields coming at very high ownership. Not this week, though. You're not going to get them steamed up this week. We see the Bears are coming in really low owned. The most popular play from this game is the Browns at 3,500, the Browns defense, that is. Jerome Ford at 5,500 here. Doesn't seem like this game's going to pop off the page, and mix in the bad weather and stuff. Doesn't seem like I'm going to be that interested. But what about you, Snyder?
Yeah, I don't see myself getting too invested in this with we got some pretty bad weather. I was just pulling that up as well. Yeah, it looks like indefinite rain. Yeah, 100% chance of rain and gusts over 20, 25 miles an hour. So doesn't look to be the best game to kind of stack up, but we could find some pieces in here. I do like Chicago plus the points here in this game. I think they're going to give them a run for their money, but the Browns have been playing a lot better at home. That Browns defense, the home and road splits for that Brown defense is pretty wild this year. So that's a cause for concern from the Bears there. Jerome Ford, 5.5. Kareem Hunt's 4.9. You could go either way if you want. I think I'd rather go with Jerome Ford, though. He's been in double-digit points his last 6 games. So 5.5, maybe he gets up to 20 this game potentially. I would definitely pay off his price tag there. From the receivers, not too much here. Elijah Moore's 4.5. He's been getting targets, just hasn't really done much with them. I think he's a guy that'll get you 7 to 12 points if you play him. Not nothing I'm looking forward to in like tournaments and stuff there. I worry about DJ Moore and Justin Fields in the weather type game like this, but you can always play Fields naked if you want. I mean, you're going to get Fields at like 1% owned this week. DJ Moore is going to be like 5% owned. You can go to the Bears defense too, or the Cleveland defense. Maybe that's the way I would look to go. The Bears are 3-3 and the Browns are 3-5. So I think I'd rather look to the Browns defense maybe at 3-5 at home. They played a lot better at home. Really no ownership at all in this game. So it's kind of just like a cross-off game for me as well.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense here. And Drew, Joe Flacco, is he the best quarterback the Browns have had this season?
Absolutely. Yeah. Dude, the backup QBs have been good. Who was playing earlier today? I lost the stupid single game parlay.
Jake Browning and Nick Mullins. Mullins, you took the under.
I did. But I had all his other overs, so it made no sense. Yeah, I posted that in the chat. So pissed about that. Oh God, all I had to do was hit over. How hard is that? But yeah, Flacco is good. Where's Nick Foles at? He was also good, and then he left. So I really don't like many pieces of this game. I saw someone in the chat mention defenses. I think defenses are okay, but I also don't think defenses in sloppy wet weather do really well anyways. Like you kind of want picks and you want pick sixes. And I don't think the rain defenses or defenses in the rain environments do really well. But without bearing the lead, I mean, the next 2 games for the early slate are great. And then we have four really good ones in the afternoon. So I don't really have much to add on this one, man. I think honestly, I'm going to skip over it. There's really nothing, even the ones that are fringe plays like Amari Cooper, Njoku, I just don't see me getting to them with the games we were about to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I said. We would start slow, right? Jerome Ford, probably the best player in this game. And that way the defense as well can definitely be in the mix. But we can go ahead and get into some juicy games. Now we're finally approaching the number 40. Is this the first 40-point total we have on this on the slate that we talked about? Yes, it is. The Saints might have been very close, actually. But we get the Green Bay Packers playing host to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jaden Reed is looking great. I think he looked really good without Christian Watson last week. You all said Dontavion Wicks get hurt a little bit. Not sure how serious that is. I do want to keep status on him, but if he misses, it's going to be the Jaden Reed and honestly the Romeo Doubs show a little bit. Romeo Doubs does come in a little bit more expensive than Reed, which is very surprising to me. Tucker Kraft, 3K, is getting some ownership as well, north of 20%. Do they think this is still the Monday night slate and they're just projecting ownerships based on that? Because those were the 2 most chalk options on Monday. They're the 2 highest owned tight ends that I've seen. That is kind of crazy. Rashad White, this has been a good spot. Your running backs against Green Bay. Rashad White has found a rhythm of late. He's been doing great. Jordan Love, good play. And if Dontavion Wicks plays, he is projecting for above 10% ownership as well. This one looks like it could be nice, Snyder. Talk to me about it. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I do like this game quite a bit. I think I ran the Sims, ran the Sims, the contest Sims, and there was quite a bit of Packers showing up at the top of the Sims there. Love, Kraft, Jaden Reed definitely, and then Romeo Doubs is up there too in the Sims there at 5.3 versus Reed at 4.9. We're going to see Reed at least 3 times the ownership of Doubs, I think, coming into tomorrow. I mean, Reed's a great option. I mean, you can't say anything bad about the guy, especially when he's still priced under 5K. So Reed's definitely going to be a guy that's going to approach at least 30% ownership probably tomorrow. He's going to be a guy that everybody plays in the cash and single entries and all that. Put up 20 last week, eight catches off 10 targets. Only got 27 yards though off the 8 receptions. So that was kind of crazy to see. But he's definitely a guy that he's going to be looking to often. We got Watson and Wicks still questionable. It sounds like Watson's going to be out. Wicks need to monitor that. 4K price tag on Wicks. I love his upside if he plays though, so I'll be definitely looking into him. From the tight end, I really don't like the tight end position at all this week, so I don't mind playing that Chig at 2.9 or Kraft at 3K flat. So those are the main two guys I'll be looking at. There is one more tight end I'll be looking at here up soon, but I definitely like the value tight ends. If you could guarantee me 9 from Chig, or like Kraft's been right there too. He put up 10 last week. He's got 9, 7. If he can get me in that 7 to 10 range, I would definitely gladly take that from a bad tight end position. So be on those guys pretty heavily. Not much from the Tampa Bay side though. I think Green Bay is going to roll here in this spot. So I'm not going to be too overweight on the Tampa Bay spot. Besides Rachaad White, I play him every week. He's always seems to be right in that 15 to 20 point range. So I'll have some White in the player pool for sure. I mean, he's just one of those consistent guys that I've just been playing every week. So I know he's going to basically 15's his floor, and he's got the upside to get 25, 30 points. So he's been a guy that's just consistently been a 20% guy in my pool. So he'll remain right around the 20% mark, I think, for tomorrow as well.
Yeah, it makes sense there, and it's worth noting. Like, you look at Tampa Bay; they've been one of the worst against tight ends. There's a reason why Tucker Kraft is popping a bit. I can definitely see it now. I didn't get it at first, but I guess tight end is so bad where it makes a little bit of sense. Aaron Jones being back for this one, I think you see a situation like we saw earlier in the season where, A.J. Dillon's questionable as well, but you get Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon where no one's really like the true lead back, right? Like, you just kind of have 20 touches or 20 snaps for Jones, like, 30 for Dillon and then 10 to whoever else, like Patrick Taylor or something. You could see something like that happen. We had the Packers absolutely just crumble in Monday Night Football against Tommy DeVito's New York Giants. Good rebound spot for them, Drew. Are you on their stacks this week?
Yeah, I do like the Green Bay side. So I'm with Snyder there. And you could pretty much stack up 3 or 4 if you really want to get aggressive. There are some better games, which we're going to get to in a second. But I do think Rachaad White is getting overlooked a little bit, just from what Snyder was talking about. I think Rachaad White has become kind of the workhorse down the field and obviously in the red zone. So Rachaad White at 7K is probably going to be in majority of my lineups. The other one I've been kicking around is Cade Otton. He finally got in the box last week, but like he's going to be sub 5%, 4%. And there's a lot of cheap tight ends in there. And I've been playing him every week. He has not cracked 10 points in the last five games, I think. But I mean, the dude, I don't know. In certain situations, I just feel like Otton could get to 20, and at 3,200 at 4% or 3%, maybe lower. I don't know how he gets squeezed. I might take a one-off shot on Cade Otton. I would probably even play him with Rachaad White, just not stacking with Mayfield. But yeah, I think the Green Bay side is fantastic. Tucker Kraft is a cheap tight end. Like I said, I probably want to pivot off of some of the chalkier cheap tight ends. But Wicks at 4K, Reed at 4,900, and then obviously Jordan Love would be stacked with him at 6,200. So yeah, I do like the Green Bay side. I'm there with you, Snyder. I do think Green Bay kind of keeps the momentum going, but Rachaad White I think is still like a core play with or without Green Bay stacks.
I like it. It's worth noting too. I keep going back to it, but you potentially can get Jordan Love right here in a pass funnel at 10% ownership is what they're projecting, right? How many times have the Bucs been the opponent and like the Millie Maker winner? It's been a few times this season. It's been like 3 or 4 times, I think. Because even last week, it was Ritter, London, and Pitts that almost got there. I mean, you definitely had London in the winner. So it's interesting. I don't mind going against Tampa Bay at all, especially in a game where, Green Bay kind of has to win. You couldn't blow that game last week, and you thought you were going to win it. You thought you'd roll against New York Giants and Tommy DeVito, and that didn't end up happening. We get a chance at Lambeau to make some noise, so it should be a good one here. I'm with you guys. I definitely love Green Bay this week. let's move on to Patrick Mahomes. You know, the guy who couldn't believe the worst call of all time was an offside call against Kadarius Toney last week. They are taking on the New England Patriots, the Bailey Zappies New England Patriots, where Hunter Henry caught 2 touchdowns against the Steelers and looked pretty good in the first half. This is a game with a low total. Out of all the afternoon games, this one's the grossest. I think, well, the latter half games. It's still a 1 p.m. game, I should say. How many more chances can I give the Chiefs here, Snyder? And this isn't a great spot on the road. I know that. How many more chances can I give them? You have Rashee Rice at 19%, Demario Douglas at 16% under 4K. Zeke is at 29%. There's only 3 players with more than double-digit ownership. Isaiah Pacheco is out for this one, by the way. Are you going to the Chiefs at all here?
Yeah, I think we can get to some of these guys. Like, even if you play like a Case Keenum, you can easily get up to Travis Kelce, who's going to be less than 5% owned. I think Kelsey's a great tournament play this week, 7-6. He's got to go off one of these weeks, you would think. Although, I mean, the Patriots haven't been really playing like the old Patriots, like Bill Belichick used to try and take away the team's best player. That really hasn't been happening too much this year. I mean, the defense has been playing all right, but they've just been getting beat here and there. But I do like some Kelce this week. Basically no ownership. It's risky, I know, but he's been decent. I mean, he hasn't had like a really bad game except for the one game against Miami. He's been right around 15 points, and that's just been like an average game for him. I could easily see Kelce go for like 120-1 here and put up like 25 to 30 DK points here at sub 5% owned. So I really like him for tournaments. I've been playing Rashee Rice a ton this year. He's always been in my player pool. The price tag is coming up a little bit. It's up to 6-1 now, but he's going to be a really popular guy. He's going to be a cash guy that everybody goes to there. 6-1, number 1 receiver for Kansas City. They're still favored by 8 or 9 points in this game, so I do expect KC to score in this game. I think they're going to try and use this as a get-right spot. I mean, they need to get right here against a weak Patriots team. So we'll see if they can get it done. It looks like Pop Douglas might be back this week too. He's under 4K, would be a guy I would look to. He was getting a ton of targets when he was in there. So I think he's a really good sub 4K guy that I will look to get overweight on if he does in fact play tomorrow. I know he's still questionable, but I think he's going to go from what I'm hearing. Last week I played a decent amount of McKinnon last week. Maybe I could get back there again. He was fine last week, just only played about half the snaps. Had 4 carries, did get the touchdown, only had 3 catches. I did expect a little more from him in the receiving game last week. Only had a few catches there, so that was kind of disappointing there. And I haven't really decided what I'm going to do with Zeke yet. I know he's going to be popular, and last week he looked good last week. He had that spring back in the step, 22 carries last week. 7 catches in the passing game, 7 for 72, and a touchdown in the passing game. I don't think he can duplicate that score, but he's a guy I'm going to look at, though, at 5'8". I don't expect him to put up like 27 points again, but he could definitely get 20, I think, in this matchup. I need to look into that more. I need to get your guys' opinion on that, too. What are you guys doing with Zeke?
Yeah, Zeke is projected to be one of the top-owned running backs here, and that is a good talking point here because he dominated the Steelers last game. He played almost every snap, and he caught a lot of balls. 29% feels a little bit low, Drew. Do you think it should be higher?
29% owned?
Yeah, I think it might be higher.
Yeah, it's going to be up there.
I mean, it's going to be up there, yeah. Are you saying it should be higher?
I think it will be higher. I think that you're getting a guy who, in any script, is going to do fine, right? He had how many catches last week? Was it like 7 or something like that? It was crazy. And they were winning that game. Imagine if they go down, how many checkdowns Zeke could get. I think his floor is like, yeah, I hate to throw it back to prime Zeke or whatever, but like I think his floor is like 12, and that's really impressive for 5,800.
Well, wasn't he splitting the workload early on in the season? Like, I mean, he was getting like a third of the workload. Ramondre, yeah, and then Ramondre got hurt, so he's been being built up a little bit. So I don't know, man. I struggle to buy into chalky Zeke just yet. Oh man, this game's interesting. What's that, Simon?
I think I'm gonna get off if he's gonna be 30% owned. I don't think I can put my.
I didn't know what Rubio was saying. If you were saying like 23%, but he should be 50%, so you got to go overweight. I'm thinking like, man, approaching 30 for Zeke on this slate, a big slate. He's cheap, okay, but like maybe in cash makes a lot of sense, but tournaments, I struggle. And it's a 14-point total. I mean, they shouldn't be leading,
which is good. Good.
I don't know. They might be chucking it, man.
I think that's perfect for Zeke. He was the leading receiver like 2 weeks ago, and you look last game, 7 catches for 72 yards and a touchdown. If there's trailing, he's going to get there.
Again, I might be biased. I just had Gardner Minshew at over 240 passing yards, and he had 215 after the third quarter, and then they just ran it like 30 straight times. Like they literally just kept running it. They didn't even try to throw it until they had like a 3rd and 20, and he finally chucked one out of bounds. So, God, it's getting the lead. They just run everything. So, yeah, if he's behind, I just don't see it. But, yeah, I will defer to you on that one. My point on this game, I'll be kind of short and sweet. I think that it's an interesting spot to play the Chiefs at 3,900 for a defense that's going to be obviously winning or obviously leading, and possibly, like I just said, if New England starts to chuck it, there's some turnover opportunities there. I think that's probably the most leveraged spot in this game. Otherwise, Kansas City's priced up quite a bit. Kelce is probably the least priced up just because he's been somewhat average the last few games. But like Rashee Rice at 6,100 is up there. Mahomes is still 7,800. I mean, again, you got what was Flacco for 5K. So like I struggle to get a lot of pieces from this game, even though I really want to. So it'll just be one-offs. I think Rashee Rice is still fine at 6,100. I think Kelce is okay. He's not going to be crazy owned, which is nice, but I think Kelce's in a really good spot for one of his ceiling games. So that's probably my favorite target from this game. And again, it's one of those you kind of want to stack up the Chiefs, but it's really inhibitive with the pricing this week.
Yeah, you're right. And that makes a lot of sense there. And I've not been a guy who stacks up the Chiefs the past few weeks. I'd done it early in the season. The last time I did it was the Chargers slate where Travis Kelce went off. But since then, it's been a stay away spot. And I don't think going to New England is the move there.
Right,
honestly.
yeah.
So let's get to the 4:00 games. These 4:00 games are awesome. We got a lot of teams with really high totals here. We got the 49ers, the Commanders, the Rams, the Cowboys, and the Bills, all projected for 22 or more points here. It's really nice. Some weather concerns maybe at Buffalo, but we'll get to that one last. And we'll go to Arizona first, where the San Francisco 49ers are taking on the Arizona Cardinals here. Brock Purdy and the 49ers are absolute studs right now. McCaffrey ran really bad last week on touchdown. Jordan Mason ran in a 3-yard touchdown after McCaffrey had a 72-yard run. You saw Deebo Samuel run one in from 1 yard out. And despite all that, McCaffrey still did okay. All right. This is a great spot for running backs, has been the entire season. McCaffrey is one of your top studs on the entire slate, I imagine. Snyder, what are you doing with this 49ers offense where it doesn't seem like anyone wants to trust anyone outside of McCaffrey and Purdy? It seems like there's not going to be a whole lot of ownership on this game in general.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to project this 49ers offense. I mean, they got so many weapons on this team, and I kind of think they're kind of trying to preserve McCaffrey for a playoff run, too. You look at his carries. I mean, he had that 72-yard run right out of the gates last week and only saw 15 more carries that whole game. Only had 1 catch in the game, too. So I think if the 49ers get up by like a couple touchdowns, they're just going to kind of hold McCaffrey kind of at bay. I mean, on paper, he's a great play. You could definitely see him get 20 to 25 in this game. I think he probably should. But I am kind of worried a little bit about the enough offense to go around, and the 49ers really trying to push it. They got the Ravens on deck next week for Christmas, so maybe they're looking ahead to that a little bit. McCaffrey's going to be probably the highest owned player on the slate. I mean, he should be. I think he'll probably be right around 40% owned. That definitely is the best play on the slate. I mean, going against the best matchup on the slate here against the Cardinals, definitely could see McCaffrey going for like 120 and 2 here in this spot real easily. But I do kind of worry if the Niners get up big here, though, and it's not McCaffrey, that he could be in one of those game scripts where he only gets 17 to 20 points again, like we've seen a couple times this year. So That's the only pause I have with McCaffrey here. I do love the price. I mean, the price is fair. I mean, he's still at 9K, 9.3. I mean, that's underpriced for his upside. I mean, realistically, he probably should be like 10K in this matchup.
Even his floor, he's underpriced.
Yeah. He probably should be like 10.5 in this matchup. So you're getting a really good price tag on him here. It's just, I do have that sitting in the back of my head where like last week, he didn't even break 20 points when he ripped off 72 yards on the first play of the game. So that is kind of holding me back a little bit. But, I mean, you can go to Debo, you can go to Ayuk, you can go to Kittle. All those guys are in play. It's just kind of – it's almost like playing Russian roulette with those three guys. Which one's going to have the big game? I mean, we saw Debo have back-to-back big games. He's up to 7-7 now. He can take a slant to the house like nothing, like we've seen the last 2 weeks. 7 for 149 and a touchdown last week. Back-to-back games over 35 DK points. I think the ownership should kind of follow that a little bit, but I'm still seeing him under 10%. So if you're going to give me the upside of Debo under 10%, I think you got to warrant him some in your tournament lineups as well. And looks like Kittle's going to be like 5% at 5.8. Tight end's bad, and 5.8 is a great price tag for the upside that Kittle brings. I mean, the Cardinals are just atrocious against pretty much every position in a dome here too. So I think you can. I'm going to try and mix a lot of these Niners in as one-offs, trying to find the one that goes off because I'm sure one of them is going to have at least 2 touchdowns. It's just kind of tough finding the one that's going to kind of go off there. Brock Purdy's up to 6.8. You can get there if you want to. I don't know if I'll get there, though. I think I like some of these other guys. If I'm going to spend that much, I'd just rather spend a little more for like a Josh Allen or something, as we'll get into a little later, or a Stafford for a little bit cheaper. But on the Arizona side, not much from me there. Rondale Moore's back. You can go to him if you want. He hasn't really been doing much. Just caught 1 pass last week, two passes the week before. Greg Dortch is right there, 2 at 4-1. He didn't do much last week either. He only caught 1 pass after catching 3 and 6 the 2 weeks before. So you can mix those guys in as run backs if you want. But definitely, I think the Niners, it's going to be tough to pinpoint who gets the points, but there's one of them that's definitely going to go off.
Yeah, it's worth noting too, real quick, just because I forgot to mention it. Trey McBride is projecting for 25% ownership on the Cardinals side, but I think you bring up good points. We also had a couple questions in here too. One of them we'll get to in a minute. OS, we were talking about the Rams game next. It's a clear answer though. If you need one right now, it's Stafford for sure. And just kind of going back to this question here, what price does McCaffrey need to pay off this tag, or what point total? Right, I think 25 points, and you're going to walk home like happy. I think 25 points for McCaffrey, you're going to be like, cool. I got what I wanted. You know, there's not a ton of great studs on this slate, as mentioned above by our guy Jackoff. He mentioned it just above about, there's not a ton of great studs, right? If McCaffrey got 25, I'm happy. If he got 30, I'm ecstatic. And I think that's kind of the way to approach that.
I think honestly, at his ownership, if he scores 21, he doesn't kill you. I think anything at like 16, 17 and under, you're dead. At 40% on. I think 21 on this slate, there's really not a ton of other options that are, unless they're just low on that go off. So yeah, I think actually you have a pretty big window for a floor for McCaffrey at the price. I think he's a must play in most.
You're kind of just going one-on-one, I think, against CeeDee Lamb. He's the other guy that's gonna be about a third the ownership of him, but right at the same price point.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you could probably play them both. There's enough cheap options elsewhere. But I just think, again, context of the slate at the price, it's somewhat relevant to the other running back options anyway. So, I mean, if he was like the only 9K, it'd do the same thing in NBA. Like the raw points sometimes are all you need. So, I'll go through this really quick. I actually like this game overall. So to Snyder's point, he's 100% right. Like, between Ayuk and Debo, like those are the 2 guys that you just hate having a decision to make. And that's why the sims are helpful, because sometimes they'll just make a decision off of ownership and then I don't have to think twice about it. But it does suck because Ayuk or Samuel, one of those 2 will likely go off if the game shoots out. So for that reason, though, I mean, I understand the frustration with McCaffrey getting pulled early, if they are going to make a playoff run, obviously, and try to preserve him a bit. But I think this game has the opportunity to be a really good game stack. I think you could take shots on Kyler Murray coming back after the last, I think he's been off for 3 weeks. Call of Duty has been sluggish. So Kyler Murray's back. And like, I think 3 of his last 4 games before he got hurt, he was right at 20 points or just over. And like, honestly, Purdy's projection is 20 points. And there's an avenue where McCaffrey gets the points, where you stack up Arizona. Arizona has to keep up with McCaffrey. Like, there's a lot of game stack environments that I really like here. So, and for that same reason, I think you could stack San Francisco. If you don't take McCaffrey, you take Purdy with Ayuk and Samuel and hope they shoot out, or you take Kittle with Ayuk or Samuel. Like, there's just so many different ways to stack up this game. I love it. I think you can take full game stacks. I think you can stack up San Francisco without McCaffrey. You can play McCaffrey as just a one-off as a core play, which obviously makes a lot of sense. And then Arizona is sneaky, man. I mean, they still have one of the higher totals as a dog that, standard deviation, they're approaching 24, 25 points as far as like a window that they could possibly score. So there's still like a lot of upside, I think, on both sides here. I don't think Arizona should be completely forgotten.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's a good point to kind of bring up. I mean, just Trey McBride is going to be the chalkiest option, but you can still get Kyler Murray, who has great rushing upside just at the quarterback position, right? You can get him with Marquise Brown.
Marquise Brown's been doing all right.
Michael Wilson looks like he'll be back this week, Snyder. So we get Michael Wilson back too, where he's 3,300, right? You have cheap avenues to where, you can do like a 3-man stack of the Cardinals, right? And run it back with McCaffrey if you really want to get a little funky. I mean, that's going to get you unique. And what if the Cardinals did? I mean, they're at home. They're at a division rival, right? They're against a division rival, I should say. It's not completely just like, ignorant to say, oh man, the Cardinals can keep it close. And divisional matchups are always close, it feels, right? Sometimes not, when the Cowboys kick the Eagles' ass, right? Those aren't really close. But, a game like this could definitely stay close. I like what you guys are putting on there. Let's go ahead and move on to the Commanders and Rams game. So the Commanders and Rams, we have 2 really chalky running backs on DraftKings here. So probably the 2 of the highest owned running backs. McCaffrey obviously is number 2 or number 1, however you want to look at it. But Kyren Williams checks in as number 1 at 43% on the slate. Antonio Gibson is going to be extremely chalk at 29%. And the reason being, Brian Robinson is still out. Hamstring injury. He is going to miss this game here. And not just that, the quarterback here, Matthew Stafford, 20% owned, the highest quarterback projected ownership-wise here on the slate. You get Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp closely following behind. This game just has so many double-digit ownership pieces, and the biggest reason is the Washington defense sucks. The Rams defense is not that good. You get a 50-point total here. This might be the best game of the day, right, Snyder?
Yeah, there's a lot of avenues for this game, just absolutely going full nuclear here. You get Gibson at 5.2. I mean, he's got great upside out of the backfield. Love the play there. Sam Howell's going to see ownership here. You got Terry McLaurin's going to see ownership here. My guy Jahan Dotson isn't going to see any ownership here. Maybe I could go to him as like a lower owned piece of this. I love the upside that Dotson has. I've been playing him. I haven't really been playing Washington lately, but earlier in the year I was playing Dotson a little bit. See what he's been up to. He's been fine in that 4 to 6 target range. I mean, he's got the upside to take one to the house. So as we saw earlier this year when he put up 27. So he's a guy I'll be looking at for low ownership to kind of get different in the stack. So I like some Dotson there, Gibson. And then on the Rams side, I think Kyren Williams is the best play on the slate personally. So I'll be getting overweight on him. I think Kyren Williams is going to outscore McCaffrey is my hot take. So I'm going to be heavier on Kyren Williams. Love him. I mean, he's going to get 20-plus carries in the ball, and then he's going to get work out of the backfield too. So I love the all-around full deal of Kyren Williams. I know he's going to be very popular, but that's the chalk I'm willing to eat on this slate there. And Stafford's my favorite cheaper quarterback if I'm not going to play like a Josh Allen or something. Definitely like Stafford. I think you can play Stafford and Kyren to maybe get a little bit unique. I don't know if many people are going to play them both together, but that's kind of my read there. And then I've been on Puka a decent amount this year. He's still 7.3. That's a good price tag on him. I do like Puka over Kupp, which seems kind of crazy to say, but I've been playing more Puka this year, so I'll be right there. I like Dotson, though, to kind of get different. Even though I think Curtis Samuel's kind of overtaken the wide receiver 1 role, it seems like, over the last couple of weeks. Had that big game against Dallas, caught 4 for 65 last week. So he's another really good price right there. 4-6, good tag on him. But I think we could see a lot of points in this game, though. So I want to kind of get overweight on some of these guys. So I really do like Kyren Williams, though, as my top running back, which no surprises. He's probably going to be one of the highest owned players on the slate.
Yeah, this game has just got a ton of ownership across the board, too. I mean, Kyren Williams definitely topping the list there. You get a chance. I'm not saying it's the smartest thing to do or anything like that, but Drew, what about a double stack with Kupp and Nakua, Puka Nakua?
With Stafford?
Yes.
It's expensive.
It's very
it's expensive. You could do it. We talked about that early on in the season, right when Kupp came back. We talked about doing that, and I don't think it worked out very well. I think Kupp went off, and then Nakua was like mediocre the next week. Both were mediocre, so it never really worked out. That would be, I mean, I imagine that stack is probably relatively low owned compared to the overall ownership of the game, like of individual pieces. I probably won't do it, but you could. I think Kyren Williams just stands out as like the play that would bust up that stack. And he's going to be chalky, so you're going to lose twice as bad, basically. So I do like Kyren Williams. He is very going to be very high owned. I don't know if you've run any sims yet, Steiner, but I imagine this game probably isn't popping in a lot of contest sims.
Actually, I just looked at it. Guess what Kyren Williams' percentages was in the sims that I ran? Just the base sims, 150 with RAROI.
Probably 70%.
82%.
82%. Okay. But like stacks, I imagine this, like there's not a lot of pieces from this game that show up as like good ROI plays, but that being said, I do think there's a lot of good pieces here. I don't think stacking is the way to go. Like we just talked about the last game, like Arizona presented a opportunity for lower ownership on the run back, or at least like a primary stack within the San Francisco side as a run back. This is just ownership throughout. So I don't see myself game stacking it. I don't see myself taking a lot of Washington stacks or Ram stacks. It just seems like maybe not overowned. Overowned is probably the wrong word, but relative to the slate again, I think you are struggling to find a way to get different if you are chucking in a bunch of these owned pieces, especially if you have Kyren Williams with anybody else in here, you're really struggling. You're like 2v2s against everybody probably.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense there. It's definitely very well thought out too. I appreciate that. And it kind of goes to show like, yeah, I get it. It's on paper, especially in single entry, right? If we're playing single entry, I do want this game, right? I don't want to completely fade it, but if you're talking about
for sure, yeah,
winning $1 million, right? Got to get different than the field. Everyone's going to have this game. Everyone. All right. Hedge it, just put your money on the over and then fade the game right now. But it's interesting too. I mean, it's not, you bring up a good point too. It's not like, oh man, I can get different by playing DeMarcus Robinson. Well, hey, DeMarcus Robinson is going to be 19%. You're not getting different. Oh man, I'll get different. Instead of going Kyren, I'll go to the opposite running back, Gibson. Maybe the script changes up. No, they correlate together, right? If the Rams go up, Gibson gets really, it's all those PPR points and stuff where, he's going to get 4 or 5 catches. I honestly pull Gibson in the same boat as Zeke, which I was kind of surprised that. I guess it makes sense. Gibson has a higher total, the Washington team total in the low 20s, and obviously the Patriots team total is not in the low 20s; it's in the 14. So I get it. I mean, this is a tough one to fade in a milli maker, but you got to do it. You got to get different somehow. That game's going to have ridiculous ownership. It's going to be a good game just on paper, but maybe it busts. Maybe it kind of just goes a little bit awry. I think that's a good take there. And let's go ahead and move on to the last game of the slate. And again, guys, Giblets 44% off your first payment, whether it's a week or whether it's a month. Here at Run for Your Sports, we get the Off the Chalk tomorrow. Snyder will be joining on for some Off the Chalk with AP and JT tomorrow. It'll be a good time. And don't forget Up to Lock, too. We'll have an Up to Lock show for our members. Ask any questions that you guys want. And let's have a good time. Let's go ahead and move on to our last game, the Cowboys against the Buffalo Bills. Slight weather concerns in this one. On paper, great game. If I didn't look at the weather, I'd be even more entertained. I am shocked that the Bills are favored. Snyder, what's your take? Should the Bills be favored against Cowboys?
I think the Bills are going to roll in this game, so I definitely think they should be favored here. I think this is just a bad spot for Dallas. Like we saw Philadelphia run into a couple of those spots that were just bad spots. I think this is just a bad spot for Dallas. Buffalo's playing for their lives here. This is like a playoff game. Every game out is like a playoff game for Buffalo down the stretch here as they try and even win the division. If Miami loses another game, they're still live for the division. So I think Buffalo is going to come out strong here. I'm going to try and jam Josh Allen in as much as I can. I think this is a spot where Allen goes for 40 plus. We saw Diggs has had 11 targets the last 2 weeks. Hasn't really done anything with them. Like early in the year, those first 5 weeks, Diggs was just smashing every single game. If he gets 11 targets here in this game again, I like the upside for him to find one of those 30-point games like we saw early in the year. So I definitely like Diggs at under 5% ownership. 8-4 is tough to fit. It's tough to fit that Allen Diggs stack in there, but I'm going to be doing it some. And another reason I brought up that Case Keenum earlier is if I play Case Keenum, I can play Diggs and CD Lamb as kind of like a little corollary stack, which I think will be very unique. We're going to get Diggs under 5%, and then CD Lamb's going to be right around 10 to 15, I think. So pretty low ownership on CD. CD's just been absolutely nuking lately too. He's priced at 9.2. It's going to be tough to fit him in there as a lot of people are going to go to McCaffrey instead, but we know what CD can do, but also in hindsight, you got to look at it both ways. I mean, the Cowboys have been great at home. This is not at home. This is on the road in some elements here in Buffalo. Another reason why I like Buffalo even more in this game, as we're going to see some wind, we're going to see some rain in this game. So I think that only benefits Buffalo even more. So I've already made a couple bets on Buffalo, -1.5 and -2. So definitely heavily invested in the Bills in here. And I think you can even play James Cook as 6.3 at basically no ownership. He'll be probably right around 5% ownership, I think, for James Cook. And he's looked solid here lately. Last week he had a good game, 25 points, 16, 19, 16. So for 6.3, I mean, if you can pencil him in for 20, I would definitely take that. And I think he could outscore a lot of the field there if he can reach 20-plus points at 6.3 at under 10% owned. So sign me up for these Bills. I like the Bills a lot this week.
All right, I like it. Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. Drew, what are you doing with this Cowboys-Bills game?
Yeah, I'm just looking it up. It has a little bit of weather, right? Rains all day, or rains the entire game. A little bit of wind, 10 to 15 miles per hour looks like. So just kind of a rainy slog, I guess. I don't know, man. I like Dallas. I know it's at Buffalo. Buffalo just has not impressed me. The last couple weeks or the last month and a half or so. That being said, Buffalo does grade out really well, but this whole game surprised me. Just looking off the last game we just talked about, how different the ownership is, just because pricing is a little bit more constrictive around Diggs and Allen and CeeDee Lamb. But I think there's just a lot of pieces that are still in play, even if it is a little bit rainy. I don't mind CeeDee Lamb, 9,200. I think you're just trying to make a play against McCaffrey. I think that's really what it comes down to. If you don't think Lamb can have a ceiling game, which it's honestly probably more likely that McCaffrey has a ceiling game over Lamb in this situation. But I think Pollard is fine if you want to play that environment at 6,700. Allen and Diggs, you can't really stack them together. So you're basically taking Allen or you're taking Diggs as a one-off and you're trying to find someone else. So it's a really tough game to figure out. You can't stack it. I struggle to stack this game. But it's obviously the best total on the slate. You want some pieces here. You're just trying to pick out the script that you think will work. So for me, I like Pollard quite a bit. I think Pollard is the guy. He's been hated on all year. Finally, Pollard's going to have a game. But I understand the Buffalo side. It makes sense. But it's tough to figure out where you're going to put the points.
Well, we're going to outnumber Snyder here. Not out Snyder. We're going to outnumber Snyder here because I'm on the Cowboys as well. I think this Buffalo team is.
I got a ticket in for Dallas to win the Super Bowl, so they're going to need to win a lot.
It's a big game for them. This is one where You just beat the Eagles. The Eagles are kind of wounded. They go, they're playing Seattle this Monday or something like that too. So you could easily see this division flip maybe this weekend. And this Buffalo team barely beat Kansas City. I don't think that highly of Kansas City. All right, it was a good win. I do not like this Buffalo defense right now. I think that they're going to concede way too many points. I think the elements help them. Good thing it's out there. Good thing it's in Buffalo. It definitely helps them. Josh Allen against this defense that forces a lot of turnovers. Josh Allen hasn't been cured of the turnover itis. He still makes some bad mistakes. I think the Cowboys come in. I think that they put up a big score against Buffalo. I'm not a believer in this Buffalo defense. All right. I'm a believer until I see it, guy. Kansas City scores against nobody. Sure, you held them to 17, really 24 when Kelsey made that throw. You held them to that, right? Great job. They're not going to stop the Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb, 17, 18% ownership. That might even go down a little bit. Love Jake Ferguson. Love Jake Ferguson, 4,800. One of my favorite plays in the entire slate. Because when I go through this tight end position, Trey McBride is going to be 5 times the ownership at just 400 more. Jake Ferguson, I'm a big fan of his. This Buffalo defense is not it. I see you guys talking about Turpin. I like Turpin a lot. Play that on the showdown slate. It's the featured showdown slate at 425. Play that on the showdown slate. Do not play that in the classic slate. All right. Even if he gets a touchdown at 3K, there's still some 3K guys out there who could easily score him. The problem with Turpin, I like the Cowboys. I always write about those games and stuff. He's got to get a touchdown that you make it worth. He's never going to get there with volume. Some guys can get there with volume and have that touchdown upside. That'd be my one little tidbit there. Yeah, I just think Dak Prescott's a little bit too priced high, for me to play. I think there's better, cheaper options. Like, I'd rather have Josh Allen at 200 more than Dak Prescott. I mean, you just can't. No matter who you think wins this game, Josh Allen's a better player quarterback.
Yeah.
I will say that I did like some Ferguson, but I just started looking into the Buffalo defense. They're terrible at every position, but they actually are really good against the tight end. So that's maybe something to kind of look into. They've only given up double-digit points to the tight end position 3 times this year.
So my favorite thing to do, and you're probably right, they are probably, since Milano went down, obviously, right? They played the Eagles who didn't have a tight end. They played against Kelsey, which, he's washed. No, he had 14.3. All right. Jets, they blew out the Jets. Conklin, leading receiver or whatever. Broncos, Troutman, right? Bengals, tight ends killed him that game. Can't forget about that. But it was 4 different tight ends that killed him. It wasn't just one, right? Bucks, K-Dot, and Patriots. There's a lot of bad tight ends on this list. All right. That would be my one take. I think earlier in the season, yes, when Milano was healthy, the secondary was good. Milano's not there. Secondary isn't repaired. I do think that it's good. It's definitely something, but I am going to ignore it just for Jake Ferguson because I'm blinded by love. But my best ball also depends on Jake Ferguson here. So I think it's good. We are free to go now, but you're not free to go. All right. Who is your play of the day? The play of the slate for week 15 here for the NFL slate on DraftKings. The Millie Maker play. It has to be under 20% or else. Snyder, you go first here. Who is your play of the slate on this week 15?
I'm gonna go Josh Allen drops a 40 piece on these Cowgirls this week.
All right, I like it. Josh Allen looking good. Obviously, the rushing upside is there. I like it. Not owned at all, really, too. Not a lot of people are going to spend up, so perfect. Drew, week 15, play of the slate. Who is it?
Let's see. I will go with Pollard.
Tony Pollard. Same game.
Yep.
Different team. Josh Allen and Tony Pollard. I like it. All right. And, I just looked at the lineup I made while we were building the show. Just ate a whole bunch of chalk except one guy. All right. Well, except one team, I should say. I'm willing to do it. I don't know if it'll be in my main team, but I'll definitely have exposure to it across the tournament. So I don't want to just say, like, oh, yeah, he's going to be my play this way. He's going to be in my main lineup. I hate doing that. But it's Case Keenum. I'm going to go with Case Keenum. I think 4K, you can get McCaffrey. You can get Kupp. You can get Lamb. I'm willing to go with the Case Keenum experiment. And it's gross. It's not the best, right? But I'm willing to bet that pass funnel, pace up, maybe the Texans coaching staff is really, really good. Maybe he pulls a Jake Browning out of his ass and does really well. I'm willing to gamble on it. It's going to be fun. I appreciate you guys for joining me. For Snyder, for Drew, for me. Have a great rest of y'all's day. If we don't win the Millie, we hope it's you.